Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the LEGO Technic Volvo EW160E. This is a wheeled excavator kit that they came out with in 2016, and I just got mine off Amazon like a week ago, so they're still available out there, fortunately. This, for me, is my first ever LEGO Technic pneumatic system set. So all of these hoses that you see hooked up here are actually hooked up. They're not just for realistic looks. They actually connect to the things that look like hydraulic rams. They're actually being used as pneumatic rams in this case because they're using air rather than a fluid. And I'll show you how all of that works. It can work just as it is. This does not come with any power functions or anything like that. Everything can be manually operated. And most of it is using pneumatics rather than gears like Technic stuff is usually done. But I will also show you the optional power functions integration that you can do if you add your own motor and battery box, which are not included with the base kit. To start with though, let me just bring you in a little bit closer to look at what all we get here in the box stock form. Now, traditionally, LEGO Technic has been mostly about the functions, right? How things actually work, and packaging LEGO gears and things that actually work into basically formats that look familiar, that look basically like something that you would see in real life. But in recent years, they've moved more and more towards doing scale representations of specific real things. And this is another example of that. The EW160E is a very specific model of real life heavy equipment. And so LEGO has tried to make something that is very scale realistic, even though they're using the Technic system. This does have some brick-based system parts in it, but very few, honestly. And this does use some stickers, but again, very few of them. You can see one major one there on the side, actually a couple of them over there. But most of the stickers that are used throughout this provide just little bits of detail and, frankly, just branding that's required. And so if you hate stickers, you can just leave those off. So looking at features here, the dozer blade does go down all the way to the ground. It actually makes nice flush contact with the ground. So if you had some small material in front here, you could actually push it out of the way. And you can go farther than that as well. If you push this in, this little gray bit right here, push that in, it lifts the tires off the ground. And yeah, the tires are able to turn in the front. And the mechanism for that is at the back, hidden away nicely with this black colored gear. You know, it doesn't stand out too much, and it just works very simply. You actually get a decent turning radius off this. The cab steering wheel is not connected to this, so all it does is turn the real wheels. And then back here you also have these outriggers that can be brought down to lift the rear tires off the ground. So those can be brought down to the ground and then taken farther still by using, again, these gray pieces. These act as locks here. Push it off the ground and keep it in place. And now these rear tires are off the ground. So all the tires are off the ground, and it's fully supported just by things that are acting as outriggers. I think the real thing has real outriggers at the front as well, but this definitely does the trick. And there's also a little tow bar here with the ball end piece if you want to hook up something simple to that. I don't think there's enough room for too many things to be connected to that, but it is still there and does work. The entire upper section is able to rotate around on the main turret, but not a full 360 degrees. It stops right here, just shy of 180 degrees in either direction. The reason for that limitation is the optional power functions integration, which puts the battery box down below and then runs wires up through the center of the main turntable under there. So they don't want those wires to be getting all twisted up and, you know, have the option of, or have the possibility of things getting broken, you know, damaged over time. So they just have that limitation, which you can easily just build out if you want, if you're never going to use power functions. But there's one other thing I want to show you here before we get to the pneumatics, and that's the elevating cab. So if you rotate this right here, there's a worm gear, and it causes the whole cab to extend forward a little bit, start to go up, and it can keep going. It can actually raise up kind of scary high, and you can still operate all the other functions of the thing while doing this. And this exists in real life to give the operator increased visibility, you know, so the operator can see farther down into a deeper hole that they're working on in a small space, or, you know, look over other piles, look into trucks where they're, very specifically putting material that's been picked up, or if they're transferring it. So yeah, that's just a simple mechanism. You can actually even see the worm gear here on the back, and it is the last of the geared mechanisms on this. Now we get to the fun stuff. To recap, this is the pump right here, so you'll see me pushing this up and down to supply air to the system, and then these are the main controls, so I'll be moving these from side to side to cause things to happen. All right, I don't have a lot of practice with this, so it's not going to be completely smooth, but I'm going to go ahead and start raising things up a bit and also give you some extension. So you want to just operate one function at a time, but it's a little bit springy in how it works, and also because air is compressible, as are these hoses, these kind of silicone style hoses, you'll see where sometimes I'll shift a lever to one side, and just the air that's already in the system without me operating the pump will cause different things to happen maybe before I want them to. There we go. And I can also operate this, so to open it up, come on. Oh, it feels like it's a little bit stuck right now. There we go. Got a little bit stuck, and then I'll just switch it in the opposite direction, and just from the air that was already pre-compressed in the system, it had enough pressure to do that. So it does definitely take some practice to make this work if you wanted to have kind of a realistic simulation. You start to get used to the controls just like you would get used to the controls on a real piece of heavy equipment, especially if it has controls that you're not familiar with, you haven't used before. But see, it's not entirely smooth all the time, and it actually requires extra skill to add smoothness to the system. So if I want to just bring the whole arm down at this point, I could just flip this switch. There's enough pressure in it. There we go. So that did it. But if I wanted to make it a little bit more smooth, I'd actually grab one of these with two fingers and just slightly move it. It's not fully an on-off switch. You can start to just slightly open up the valve. I know there's pressure there, so just it's a little bit better, and I can stop it part way. It's still moving a little bit, but it's in its neutral position. But as opposed to just flicking it all the way over and it just goes. But that's basically how this works. So over time, you start to figure out how to work things together. And let's see if I can bring this down and bring this down and close the bucket. Got to pump it up again. There we go. And bring that back to neutral. Raise everything. Might, turn this to a different location. Extend out a bit. Get a little more reach. Bring this down just a bit. Oh boy. Maybe a little bit less than that. So you got to chase it. Sometimes you got to chase it just a little bit. Like that. Bring it to the center and then release. That's how it works. It's kind of fun though, getting to learn it and having that disconnect between where you're applying input and where things are happening, and not even seeing how any of the power gets transferred around is also really cool to me personally. I just found it interesting after operating a lot of things that have gears in them. This feels a little bit more realistic, though it does have its tricks and its quirks. Before I move on, I do want you to see some of the interior working, some of the piping of the pneumatic hoses in here. It looks like a mess, and it feels like a mess when you start to put it together, but the instructions are actually pretty straightforward and make it relatively fault-free, just as long as you're careful to use the correct lengths of hoses. Like I said, they are all pre-cut and everything, so it does work out pretty well. You can just barely start to see down beneath there the individual valve units. They're just little square things, and they have each one has a axle. There we go. Looks like a switch basically from the outside, and just hook everything up, and it works pretty well. You probably recognize, even if you haven't used pneumatic systems before, you probably recognize the pneumatic T's. Also got some parts on an arm. Let's see if I can show you this up closer. There we go. Yeah, you may recognize that part right there. It has a little bar-sized bit hanging out either end, and it just acts as a connector for these types of hoses. All right, it's time to try out the power functions integration, and the set recommends that you get the 8293 kind of starter set, which includes a AA battery pack, batteries not included, a single M motor. They also have a reversing switch in there, and it also comes with a light unit, which has just 2 little lights. And for this kit, you can hook up these lights actually to the little ones, the work lights above the cab. But I'm not going to do that because it's a bunch of wires that are more of a pain to set up than is really worth your time. If you like the lights, you can put those in, but I'm going to focus on the motor because that's what gives you the main functions that really change how all of this works and allows me to stop pushing on this all the time and worrying about differing air pressures and things. Hopefully it'll smooth things out. Let's see how it goes. Okay, first things first, demonstration time. It's pretty quiet. This major pump that I had to use by hand is not the pump that's actually run by the Technic M motor with the motor conversion. They have a tiny, tiny little one that's also installed while you're building the thing in the first place. But let's just see how it runs. First of all, the bucket. Oh, that's pretty quick. There we go. There we go. All right. Let me center that up. That's already up. It's kind of fast, but I can be smooth. Okay, it's definitely slower going up. So I'm just going to do that same thing again. Down. It's on up. Go, go, go. Yeah, so it is kind of pushing the limits, I guess, of its abilities. Let me actually extend the boom all the way out. And this is pretty fast. Yeah, it's kind of pushing its limits. I'm going to let this down. I'm going to try to do it slowly. Okay. That's cool. I just have the little actuator not all the way over. This is, okay, that's good. Here, let's try this. Good. And then I'm just, oops. There we go. Try to lift it up, see how, oh wow. With a little bit of extra pressure to begin with in the system already built up. And then this is without pressure built up. So it has to do it from scratch. It's actually building up pressure within the hoses, expanding them a bit. So okay, that's not too bad. And I did install the lights in the cab, even though I said I wouldn't, because as it turns out, it's not that difficult to, there we go, to route the wires. You know, everything is really worked out in advance. And they show you how to do this in the instructions. It took me about a little over 15 minutes. I did make a couple mistakes along the way. I think you can probably do it faster than that. But yeah, the battery box is there on the bottom. There's a switch over on the side here. They make it so that you can't switch it the wrong way because this is a two-way switch. You can only switch it the correct way. It's not nearly as loud as I expected. While I was taking the thing, you actually have to take a fair amount of this apart to do the conversion. But like I said, the instructions are good. Oops, I didn't even close this up all the way. There we go. So it makes it make sense. There's quite a bit that you have to take apart. And I did realize while doing that the thing that keeps this from turning around full 360 degrees is super simple, but it's a lot easier to remove it or to leave it out while you're building it the first time. After that, it becomes a little bit more difficult, but it is very straightforward. But I mean, the routing of the wires was no problem. They make it very straightforward. So much, I learned actually so much from this because when I was going to sum everything up, I was going to talk about the fact that I didn't enjoy the build of this at the start. The early parts of the build, to build the lower sections where you start is the lower chassis. I didn't enjoy it. There were a lot of weird connections that just small, lots of 90-degree turns that didn't make sense to me. It didn't feel like I was making good progress towards the end result. It makes a lot more sense now that I've done this conversion because as it turns out, a lot of that stuff was just hiding pieces. When you are through building this, I will show you the actual spare leftover pieces, the usual spares, in a couple minutes, I think. But you're not left with any conversion parts that you have to store separately. So all the parts are, including all the parts that you need for the power functions conversion, are built directly into the thing by default. So a lot of the little builds that I was doing that I wasn't enjoying, that didn't feel like they made that much sense, some of them actually do contribute to the structural stability of this when it doesn't have that big battery brick in there. But a lot of them were just, hiding parts. So a lot of it actually was kind of nonsense, which makes that now make more sense now that I know what it was for. So I actually have more respect for the design of this, thanks to the fact that I went through this process. And the lights, can you even see the lights? I mean, it's not very impressive. So I think that is something that could have been skipped, but it was easy enough to put in, so I figured I would try it. And yeah, this definitely works better when you have the motor system in there. It would be nice if this actually had a tank. There's not enough space for an air tank. I think it would be better if it had one so that it could have some pressure on reserve or some air volume on reserve. Bring this up. There we go. Too much. Ah. Like I said, it does require some practice. But overall, yeah, this conversion has worked. It's much more enjoyable to use this with the motor in there. Yeah, I like it. I think I'm about ready to sum this up, but let me go ahead and show you those leftover extra parts first. Yeah, that's just it. 1,166 pieces officially in the set, and this is what you're left over when you're done building it. However, there are also these extra stickers. Those are special stickers to be used when building the alternate model, because this is a 2-in-1. There's a better look at the B model on the back of the box. I'm not going to build that one myself because I really like excavators in general, have a good amount of experience actually using them in real life, and this is just a basic small articulated loader with a grabber arm on the front, kind of telehandler style, but with a grabber on top that is manually actuated. So the functions for this one in terms of the pneumatics come down to just the main lift actuators right here, or rams, which work in unison, and then they just have the tilt one right here, which is the little itty bitty one, which on the main model is used for the bucket, to open and close. So that's all that this one does, but it is, once again, an actual scale-ish rendition of a real vehicle. So to do two scale vehicles out of the same parts, I think is quite good. And I understand why they included the extra stickers. I probably myself wouldn't want to apply those extra stickers, especially if I wanted to go back to the original model after just trying this out. But because it is a licensed thing, they wanted to be able to let you take it all the way, or as far as possible, towards being scale realistic. And I mean, obviously it's still Technic and it's not too big, so you're still seeing pins and sides of lift arms and everything, but I still think that's pretty smooth looking for a Technic set. It's just it doesn't have that many functions to it. Definitely doesn't use as many pieces as the main set, and doesn't it just doesn't give you as much for your money, but you can build that as an alternate. Speaking of money, this was originally $120 US, and surprisingly, significantly cheaper than you would normally expect, for sure, in other markets outside of the US, which I don't mind one bit, because usually the US gets all the best prices on things, and it's nice to, kind of switch things around a little bit every once in a while, even things out a bit. And so just $120 in the US for this number of pieces, for this level of complexity, I think was okay. Would have liked it to be less, but when you really build this and you go through the process of converting it over to power functions, if you have the parts for that, which is going to cost you extra unless you already have the parts, no matter what, it adds to the overall price that you really pay for the thing. Just it gives a real appreciation, or allows the development of a real appreciation for what all has been done here. The scale realism, all the different functions, the combinations of gear-driven things, manually operated things, the pneumatic system, which works very well, the instructions that are done very well, including the conversion part. I think all that together makes sense. It doesn't feel quite like $120 worth of stuff when I just look at it from the outside in terms of its size and everything, but this has quality, and it has depth where it doesn't quite have the quantity of length and visual mass to it. There's a lot of really good stuff that was done for this model that I'm really personally just happy about. I'm completely satisfied with it. I appreciate being able to have that manual, that hand pump to work things, so I don't have to have a motor system, which would have cost a bunch more to include with this in the first place. It's my first time, again, using Lego pneumatics at all. This is what they call the V2 system, where they've upgraded some of the parts, but just for me, it's all new. And I think it works pretty well. It's not as smooth as I would like it to be in its actions when using that hand pump. It's pretty darn good when using the motor, but even with just the hand pump, without adding the expense of the motor and the battery box, still you can get used to it. It just takes a little extra skill and manual dexterity to smooth out the operations. And I think that's pretty cool in and of itself. Just how mechanical it is and how you're really getting hands-on with physics and the workings of mechanical systems here, I think works out really well. You get the true Technic experience of understanding and feeling and experiencing, assembling gear stuff, assembling mechanical stuff, using mechanical stuff, but you also get a very nice presentation of the thing in the end. So a total package this is, absolutely. Plus it's a 2-in-1 model also, if you want to take advantage of that extra little bit of value there. No complaints from me. Definitely enjoyed this thing, and I will probably be hanging on to it for a while, and I will probably be getting more of these pneumatic system pieces to look for opportunities to do custom stuff with it, implement some pneumatic related stuff into my Lego city, even where I can do transformations of some sort. I don't know. I just want to do more. I feel like I've started to, even though this is my first time messing with this stuff, I've started to really, really, really like it very, very quickly. It's a mess of hoses in there and everything, but it works, and you can hide things away well enough. I'm pretty dang happy with this. So I think that's enough from me. If you want to see the build of this, I have the real-time build that I have published over on my Pure Builds channel with ASMR quality sound with no talking, just the pieces being put together. And I also have the speed build, which is the sped up version of the same, showing all the steps, nothing skipped, no prefab or anything like that, just the whole thing as it happened. And you can find that over on the JANG Build It channel if you'd like to. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. I definitely did. I'll talk to you again soon.